Hey, Austin here. Welcome to episode 5 of the Ascendancy podcast.
And my name's Chris. Welcome back for another episode.
In this one, we'll be talking about finance, the significance of it as vegans, as activists, and I feel like this is a really overlooked topic in the vegan community. I actually have never seen a vegan or animal rights activist talk about this subject, but I have seen many instances of the repercussions of not sort of putting it at the forefront among activist organizations, sanctuaries. It's not a comfortable topic and it's not a fun topic, but I think it's a really important one that we should just really look at as a community, as activists, and think about, the potential upsides of it, about, personal finances, our finances when it comes to our organizations. And the way that I look at it is that money is basically the lifeblood of the modern world. Everything revolves around money. If you look at all of human civilization as a whole, there are vast inequalities of resources. And if you think, us vegans are less than 1% of the population, maybe depending on where we are globally, we have a little bit more or less than that share of that less than 1%. And every time we utilize our funds, we make a purchase, we vote how we want the world to be. Whether that comes to animal exploitation or funding a sanctuary or funding activism, our finances, our money is a way to exert power and shape the world around us for better or worse. Money I don't think is inherently bad or good. I view it as a tool that we can use to influence the world around us. And as such, I think that people who are viewing my podcast, especially vegans, especially activists, I think you're good people. And I think that if you have more funds, you'll use those funds to do good. And I've personally seen a lot of good happen as a result of activists acquiring or building up large fortunes. And activism itself is quite expensive. Sanctuaries are very expensive. Having online campaigns where we have these ads where we show like the reality of animal rights can be expensive, and I've seen that be used to very good effect. Um, Personally, I try to do what I can to maximize or best improve my financial situation. And I think this is something that should be on all of our radar as a collective. And Chris, you're an activist. You actually manage, a chapter of AV. What are your experiences and what are your thoughts on this subject?
Yeah, so thank you for starting us off on this episode. I'm excited for this one because, like you said, the topic of finances is not necessarily the most flashy subject, but it needs to be talked about. And I also haven't really seen other activists, speak on this. So before I get into, my role as a organizer in my local animal rights organization, I do want to touch on, some of my thoughts around finances when it comes to vegan activism. I think it's important to not frame money as something like, oh, you're greedy because you want money, or you want to elevate your personal net worth. I think it's really important to not look at money as something vain or something to be like ashamed about going for. But as vegan activists who need to make a tremendous impact on the world for the animals, it's important for us to make money, to save money, to take care of our financial situation so that our qualities of lives can improve. That makes us better able to tolerate stress. For our work, we're able to fly across the world if needed for different activism ventures. We can donate money to animal rights groups, to sanctuaries who need it. It's really important to take this seriously and to not feel ashamed about trying to make more money, whether that be in your entrepreneurial business or in your career. It's super important. So we're just going to go into this today. So when it comes to my role as an organizer with AV, I started last year. So well, now it's 2025. So 2 years ago, 2023, I became an organizer, a co-organizer with my buddy Russell, and I started to see like the kind of inner workings of the funds that are actually required to run activism, to run a local AV chapter. Because prior to that, I was just a volunteer. I wasn't ever mindful of the costs that might be involved with it. And it's not super expensive, but it's not zero either. So with our chapter, we have a GoFundMe where occasionally we ask for donations if it runs low, and we use that money to buy cards. At our events, we hand out little info cards to people who seem to have taken the vegan message seriously, so they can head to our website, learn more information and stuff. And the past 2 years, we've also signed up for the local Veg Fest, just to have a booth there to get our name out there and show people what we do. Try to recruit new vegan soldiers into the army, if you will. And we've had a little bit of success with that. Mostly people come to those events just interested in the food and the consumable goods. So, each of those registrations cost maybe $150, $200 a pop. So, that money goes toward that. Just getting, visibility at an event like that, it does cost, some amount of money. It's not just free to sign up. And, between myself and Russell, we decided probably not going to be, signing up for those Veg Fests in the future, just because, like I said, the interest is very low. A lot of people are, just plant-based for health reasons, just straight up vegetarians or not vegan. So they're not necessarily tons of interest, although we have recruited a few people to join us out there on the streets. So most of our money now is just kind of being used for cards, like I said earlier, and occasionally we have equipment that malfunctions or breaks. We have these power cords for our TVs that need to be working properly, and recently one broke, so we had to spend a little bit on that, like $20. It was definitely already like all the TVs that we have now are accumulated a while ago by Russell, so we had those major expenses out of the way. But just in case a TV does break, we got to fork out $100, $150 to get a new one. And occasionally we ask for donations when the pool runs dry, and we usually do get a good amount of donations. However, if that were to go to zero, I'd be more than happy to step in and donate, my own money to that fund to keep this chapter alive. And just like you said, Austin, money is the lifeblood of activism. It costs money to organize these events. It costs money to organize online campaigns, advertising, and like it or not, money is a huge influence to propagating the ideas and creating the world you want to create. So it's super important that we're talking about this today, and looking forward to in the future interviewing other activists who can also talk about what they do and how finances fits into that as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I've personally seen the results of campaigns where essentially money is being directly utilized to get people to see the vegan message. I was involved with a campaign between 2019 and 2020 of a fellow activist I know. He was a marketer. He was really, really skilled marketer, and he basically created a website that explained what veganism is in depth. There was a clip of the film Earthlings and Dominion. It was basically like a website where people would go on and they would see the reality of animal agriculture and what veganism is for themselves. And he created this marketing campaign with like a sort of catchy clickbait type ad. People would click on it and be directed to this website and others as well. So, we were like A/B testing websites, seeing what potentially works, what doesn't work. And we had a group, and we would continually add people to this group who, explain what we're doing, get them to donate, put some money into it. And we were essentially reaching hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people on a global scale just by being able to utilize, funds. And this is just one example. I've personally worked with activists who are very wealthy, and they helped partially and even fully fund some of the largest vegan, documentaries. So when you look at like the really higher level stuff, it is really money intensive. But just on a personal level, having more finances increases your ability to fund activism organizations like Anonymous for the Voiceless and donate to these sanctuaries. And I think that every vegan should donate to a sanctuary. I think we should all be activists. We should all speak up for the animals. I just view, donating to a sanctuary and making a difference in the lives of these animals as a way to give back to the animals after living, in this state of indoctrination and exploiting them for earlier on in our lives. I view donating as a way to give back to them and make sure that some of the animals have a good life. And I currently live on a sanctuary right now. It's, like my house, but we also have rescued animals here. It is expensive. It does take a lot of funds to operate, to feed animals. So I've seen this stuff firsthand. We can talk a bit about our personal practices. My relationship with money was shaped when I was in college, watching YouTube videos on finance, just immersing myself, reading, just learning everything I could about it. And one thing I came across is a method called the FIRE method, which is financial independence, retire early. And this is like a monetary philosophy where a person builds up a large amount of wealth relative to their expenses. So about 25 times what someone spends in a year. And the objective of that is to get to a point where you can live off of the money that you've saved. So let's say someone's annual expenditure is 40 grand, get to 1 million, get to a potential point where someone can have, an 8% dividend or 8% annual profit, and then they can comfortably keep, living indefinitely. But more so, than that, and having that comfort, I think that's, really important for anyone, and not giving any sort of financial advice, just one thing that I try to do. Having wealth allows you to be where you want, when you want, doing what you want. If you have to have like a 9 to 5 job and you're reporting to someone, you have less energy and less resources, less mental resources to put into activism. So I think it's a path that everyone should, embark on, attempting to build some kind of wealth, something to build at least a safety net or security blanket, for the future. But I would like to have people on my podcast who are extremely successful and are vegans and have vegan companies and are shifting, economics in favor for the animals, and hearing their stories, what they did to succeed. And I think that could potentially inspire others to do the same, because there is money flowing through the world. A lot of it is, flowing into animal exploitation. I think we should divert as much of it as we can to vegans who are having non-exploitive industries, non-exploitive businesses. And I think we're moving further into that direction, but we're just at the very start of this right now. And Chris, what are your ideas? Is there any sort of things that you're doing personally as far as your finances to get ahead?
Yeah, so me personally, a lot of my financial education, I could definitely credit my father for. You don't get this stuff in school, maybe a little bit in college, but I'm really grateful to him for the ideas and influence he's had on me. Right now, I do work a 9 to 5, so I go into work 5 days a week. I'm above the median income, but I'm not like a millionaire or anything. But I'm still working on it. Personally, I just try to be frugal. I try to save more than I spend, and I do achieve that. I have some money in precious metals as savings, and I do have some money in crypto. And so I'm just kind of stacking slowly my savings and my investments and trying to make more at my job. And I think it's really important to, not be dead broke as an activist. I've met some people who are just trying to sleep over people's, houses. They're great people. They're vegan activists, but they don't have their legs under them. They're always trying to, ask someone, this person or this person, to stay and sleep on their couch, or they're job surfing this thing to this thing. It's like, it's really good to have that stability and that financial cushion so that you can, show up consistently as an activist on a week to week, month to month, year to year basis, because this is a marathon, not a sprint. If you run out of money and you're always stressing out about where to live, what job to get next, you can't be your best self and the best activist you can be for the animals. So that's my personal views on money. I don't want to give financial advice, but that's kind of a little bit about myself and where I'm at. And I do like Austin's FIRE strategy, like you talked about earlier. It's just not trying to work, and then retire when we're 65, but try to build wealth early in our lives, our 20s, 30s. Just work hard and hopefully get to that point where we can have no 9 to 5 job necessarily, and just kind of live off of investments and savings, and increase our income through that way. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't want to talk too much about my background or what I do, as far as my income and career, but one thing I am willing to share is that I worked in a corporate job that was a finance sector type job. And one thing that I saw, because I had to analyze a lot of people's income day in, day out, see where all of their money was being allocated to. One thing that I noticed, one trend that I noticed just day in, day out, is that so many of my clients, even people who made really high income, 6, 7+ figures, people tend to scale their expenses up with their wealth. And that is a trap that I've seen people fall into so much. People get a promotion, they get a new job, they start a new career, and then they buy a new car, they buy a bigger house, they buy more, they spend more. Everything scales up with their income. And this is one of the greatest traps that I've seen. And I know everything's expensive now. I know housing's really expensive now. Food is, the interest rates are still quite high. Maybe we'll see a reversal in that over the next few years. I don't see it as super likely as far as housing prices anyway. But I just think there's so much value in keeping the expenses small, keeping the budget small, even while we build, even while we try to get promoted or start our own businesses. The longer we can keep our expenditure low, the more money we can potentially save, invest in, reinvest in. So that's just one theme that I've seen. And I've seen people who don't have crazy incomes, like high 6 figures or high 7 figures, something like that. People with relatively modest incomes, as millionaires, multimillionaires, just by being really frugal for a long enough time. So anyone watching this, just I really advise, not advise, can't say that per se, but just in general, a good strategy is to mitigate expenses, regardless of how much money we make, and then putting some back into animal sanctuaries, activism, etc., doing something to give back. But yeah, I look forward to having people on the show who have had really great success with finances, and I know a few people who I have in mind, and I think it'd be great to hear their insights. But Chris, anything else you would like to add to the subject?
No, I think we covered it all. It's not going to be the final episode on the subject for sure. So I look forward to the next ones, getting some interesting guests on, other activists, their perspectives, and like you said, some successful, business owners or vegan entrepreneurs to give us some of their insights. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in for today's episode.
Hey, thank you. Peace.